Hey Miaomiao, fantastic dedication to this. It's good to see that you're submitting more written work and that you're really dedicated to improving your English, so fantastic work. Let's look at what you've got then for your writing this time. The first one was interpreting the chart, okay? And this one was all about rainfall. Okay, so this line chart, good, displays the amount of rainfall in 3 countries in 2018. Okay, so this line graph, we normally say, this line graph displays the amount of rainfall in 3 countries in 2018. I would, at this point, say which countries you're talking about. Okay, just to make it clear from the offset that you've interpreted the graph in the right way. Okay, the figure for England fluctuated between 110 millilitres in January and 90 millilitres in October before reaching 130 millilitres, which was the largest amount of rainfall in these 3 countries in December. Okay, now with millilitres, we don't need a gap in between the number and the millilitres. Okay, so it can come directly after the number. There was a dramatic fluctuation in the figure for Scotland between 130 millilitres, good, so here you don't have a gap, is good, in January and 30 millilitres in April. After that, this figure rose up to 135 millilitres in October, before falling to 50 millilitres in November, but increasing to 100 millilitres in December. Okay, well done, you've dealt very well with those figures there, because there is, like you said, a dramatic fluctuation as you're looking at them, so really well done. Particularly good is the way that you've used different words. So you've said fluctuated, you've used increase, you've used rose, so well done. I would just say that you've got fluctuated here and then you've got fluctuation here. So is there a different word that you can use just to take that opportunity to show the examiner how much knowledge of vocabulary you've got? Okay, so using a different one there. In the first 4 months, the figure for Wales declined to 20 millilitres, after which it peaked at 133 millilitres in July. I would end your sentence there, because otherwise it's becoming quite long. So end your sentence after July and say this was the largest amount of rainfall among the 3 countries. Okay, but between August and October, this figure was the lowest among the other countries before coming back to its January figure in December. Be careful with this phrasal verb there, coming back to its January figure. I would say before returning to its January figure in December. Okay, overall, the amount of rainfall of the amount of rainfall of 3 countries experienced a fluctuated trend. Okay, so the amount of rainfall among the 3 countries experienced a fluctuated trend in 2018. So again, we've got this word fluctuated, which we've got a few times now. So it would be good there to use something different. So maybe a varied trend in 2018. In the middle of the year, these 3 countries had a similar amount of rainfall. England had more rainfall than the other 2 nations. Okay. I would say here, because you're talking specifically about the middle of the year, these 3 countries were most similar in their amounts of rainfall. Okay, so trying to say that in the middle of the year they were the most similar. Okay, which is a good way to conclude here. England had more rainfall than the other 2 nations. Okay, well done. A good piece of work there. Particularly good how you have spotted different trends. So saying that there was fluctuation or there was varied levels or a range of different levels in 2018, but you've spotted where there is the most similar numbers in the middle there, and that's a really good way to show that you can interpret the information. But yeah, well done, good. So let's move on to your next piece. So your next piece here was your essay piece, and your question was, in the modern world it is possible to shop, work and communicate with people via the internet and live without any face-to-face contact with others. Is it a positive or negative development in your opinion? To what extent do you support this development? Okay, good. So let's have a look at your introduction. Okay. It is true that people today rely on the internet strongly for their daily lives and communication with others. So this one, we can take out the capital I because we don't capitalize it in English. Okay, so good. Traditional contact such as face-to-face communication becomes not that important anymore. So I would take out traditional contact because we've already got face-to-face contact. So we're using words that we don't really need to have because we've already got face-to-face. So we could say face-to-face communication has become... Oh, actually, sorry, face-to-face communication is no longer important. Okay, it's no longer important or no longer that important, so meaning not very important. Personally, I think that this is a negative development, and this essay will demonstrate points and prove arguments by using examples from University of Queensland and the Australian government. Good. I would say from the University of Queensland and the Australian government. Okay, but yes, a good introduction there. You've outlined the points, shown you've understood the question, you've given your opinion, which is good, and then you've said what your essay would do. So yeah, well done. Everything that you should have done there is great. The technology such as the internet can save us a lot of time by making our lives less laborious. Okay, so again, I would say we've got a few too many words here because we've already mentioned the internet. If this was an introduction, then this would probably be okay. But because we already know we're talking about the internet, I would take out this bit and just start with the internet can save us a lot of time by making our lives less laborious. Okay, and lowercase I for internet. In the past, if we wanted to buy food in the supermarket or work with others, we had to spend a certain amount of time travelling to the right places instead of on. Travelling to the right places. Full stop. However, now it can be done by a touch of a button on our computers or smartphones. Okay, for example, recent empirical research conducted by the University of Queensland found that the percentage of consumers purchasing goods online has increased by 40% in the past decade. Because it was a very effective way to reduce the amount of time to drive on roads. Okay, now have a look at this sentence, because although it's all good points, it's a little bit too long at this point, so you start to lose the meaning here. I would put a full stop after decade. Okay. Because it was a very effective way to... I would say here, actually, we could keep it as one sentence if this last bit is a little bit shorter. I would say increased by 40% in the past decade because it doesn't involve travelling. Okay, so that way you've got the whole meaning of that bit highlighted there, but in a shorter structure. Therefore, it is clear that the technological advancement has made our lives easier. Okay. Good. Okay. However, the reduction in face-to-face communication may have a negative impact on the development of social skills among young people. I would say here, is good. Okay, I would take out among young people, because we're going to mention that later anyway, and just say may have a negative impact on social skills. Okay, this is largely because communicating with others in person enables young people to think how to react when confronting different situations, full stop. In the long term, they are able to learn from their experience of dealing with others and develop good social skills. Okay. However, it is impossible for those who communicate with others via the internet mostly. However, it is impossible for those who communicate. Okay. So, slightly change the end of this sentence. However, it is impossible for those who communicate mostly via the internet. Okay. For example, a survey by the Australian government reported that 80% of parents worried if their children would have the capacity to get on well with others in the future, as they depended on the internet heavily to communicate. Okay. Good. Yeah, so a good piece of evidence there. I would say that for this paragraph, you're just missing a final sentence to round off that paragraph. Okay, so just like you've got here, you've got that sentence that it's making our lives easier, so it's a good thing. You need to do the same here, but to say that this is a prime example of the negative influence of the internet. Okay. Looking at this, I'm thinking slightly about your word limit, because these paragraphs I think would be possibly slightly on the longer side. So when you're writing, just see if you can think of any ways that you can reduce your sentences slightly. For example, when you've got here, enables young people to think how to react when confronting different situations, you could just say, enables people to react in different situations. Okay. Or teaches people to react in different situations. Okay, so we're already reducing that sentence slightly, taking out some of the words that are not necessary. Okay, but yeah, good. So I would say watch your sentence structure in these two paragraphs just to make sure that it doesn't become too long. Finish this second paragraph with a rounding off sentence like you have done the first. And then in terms of your conclusion, in conclusion, although the internet, so again, internet lowercase I, although the internet has made our lives easier to some extent, lack of face-to-face communication that the internet causes an important drawback. So we've already got the internet here. So this is an example of where we can reduce the length of your sentence. So we've already got the internet, so we don't need to say it again here. So lack of face-to-face communication is an important drawback. Full stop. Therefore, I believe this is a negative development. So just be clear what you mean by a negative development. What is a negative development? So therefore, I believe that increased internet usage or communication through the internet is a negative development. It would be good as well if you just thought about what may happen next in the future. So if we continue like this, this will happen. Okay. Or in my opinion, if we continue the way we are, then we will have a generation of people who cannot speak to others in person, for example. Okay, that would just extend your opinion slightly more and leave a lasting impression on the examiner. But yes, well done. 2 good pieces of writing. Like we said before, really good way of interpreting that data for the rainfall exercise. And this one is particularly good. Just those key points that we picked up on about the length of the paragraph, finishing the paragraph with a rounding off sentence and just adding a little more to your opinion at the end. But yes, very well done. Great work.